I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
What is up, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my special guests. Let's welcome Tom Jensen, a.k.a. NinerCast. How's it going, dude?
I'm doing well, CG. How are you, man?
Oh, doing well, man. Must be a great day and a great week of football coming up. Oh, wait, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move on to next year, maybe, instead of thinking about what we just went through.
Yeah.
But I love that intro, man. Randy Cross goes back. That's when I was covering the Niners. It was back in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, he's
talked to him. Willie Harper, Dan Bunce, some great names from the past.
Yeah, and then that other guy that just did Hollywood videos. Did Hollywood. He was an okay cast off of the Niners, but yeah, he's a good dude. Matthew Willen, he's a good dude. Yeah, but speaking of last season, man, what was your thoughts of last season before we get on to the offseason?
Well, you stumble at the finish line. That's a tough way to take it. That you do everything, you get there, and then I saw it as death by 1,000 cuts, that there were like 20 different things they did wrong. And if you undo 2 of those, they win. And that's a really frustrating way to lose. And then it's a question of, okay, how do they regroup, go into next year ready to go and fired up and strong, mentally tough, charged. And that's a really hard thing to do, to pick yourself up from a Super Bowl loss.
Yeah, it is. We had those ups and down seasons, and then it just came down to how we played. It's not the way to finish, but when you saw how the defense was in the playoffs, it was frustrating for a little bit. But now they want to put the scapegoat on Wilkes. I think it's because he underperformed before the Super Bowl. So
yeah, just he had already been set up for that role to be the fall guy, and he was. So okay,
yeah.
But at this point, it's just move on. What do you do now?
What to do now, but we just got to find ways to overcome the other odds. I think coming into the offseason, we had to make some changes on the coaching staff. So it kind of took longer than expected. But what was your thoughts when they promoted Nick Sorensen as the DC?
I think that Sorensen can work, and that you need somebody that's got buy-in from the players. Wilkes didn't have full buy-in, and so that hurt him. And when Wilkes not having any assistant position coaches to back him up, that made his job a lot harder. In the case of Sorensen, I think that he's going to have a lot more support because he's worked with all this coaching staff. And so he should get buy-in from the players and get support from the position coaches. And that's an important thing. Hey, Crazy. And so we'll see how things go. Staley, I think that it would be best for him to be a behind-the-scenes guy. And he'll be a sounding board for Kyle, for Sorensen, an idea man. But I think that it would undercut Sorensen if Staley takes a visible role with the players. I don't think he can do that. So he needs to stay behind the scenes during the week and on game day. And that will empower Sorensen going forward.
Yeah, I think they're just giving him an opportunity because he's been on the coaching ranks for a while. I think it's because he knows what kind of defense we run. He's been here for 2 years, but he's been working under Pete Carroll for a while. So you would pick up some knowledge from this guy.
Yeah, and Pete Carroll runs what the Niners do, so there's no problem in the transition.
Yeah, I think that's what could have made sense last year if we would have went that route, but we went outside. It just didn't work out. So I look at guys that we brought in. Okay, so Sorensen got to be the DC, but like you said, Staley just came in as an outside influence. So maybe there's something, because we've been wanting to get Fangio on our staff for a while.
Yeah, but you can't have Fangio on the staff and still run wide 9. And I think that that's ultimately what caused the problem, is that Kyle isn't willing to move off of wide 9 because he values what Kasarik does. And so he's not going to trash that, lose Kasarik, and then say, okay, now Fangio gets to run what he wants. I think that Kyle trusts Kasarik more than he trusts Fangio, and that's why we saw what we did.
Yeah, but I think bringing Staley in gives you a different perspective of what he does.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you look at the interesting hire, and we get somebody like KJ Wright. Who would have thought that would have been the interesting?
Yeah.
They call me by
Seahawk. You kidding? But it's cool though, because he played with the Legion of Boom. He played in 2 Super Bowls, and he called plays on the field. I think that bodes well for him to then learn through the ranks with the Niner position coaches to develop his game. And now you've got KJ Wright, Daniel Bullocks. You've got young guys you can develop long term. They can become great coordinators.
Yeah, I think Daniel Bullocks is going to be on the rankings at some point. Like I liked him as a DB coach and all that stuff that he's been doing. Like in the NFL, he was solid for the Lions for a short minute.
Yeah.
Sorensen was a special teamers at one point. Like he got to be the special teams coordinator, and that just caught me by surprise. Like, why would we want to promote a guy who was on the special teams coach for the Jags?
Well, I would want to replace the current special teams coach.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. Like, if that's the case, we should have let Sorensen be the guy.
Right.
Hey, you want to talk about
he's got bigger game in mind, so can't blame Sorensen for wanting to aim higher than special teams coach.
Yeah. If you want to put the blame on certain games besides that, special teams was another factor also.
Oh, yeah. And then Ray saying that I'm a playmaker. Yeah. If he was playing for Bill Walsh, he would be on the street the minute Walsh heard that quote.
He would have been cut. He would have been cut.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Walsh made it a point to say that whenever there's a live ball on a punt, you fall on it.
Yeah.
And there's Ray saying, no, I'm a playmaker. Yeah, thanks a lot, dude.
Yeah, he pulled a Cam Newton kind of almost.
Yeah.
I mean,
or Kyle Williams.
Kyle Williams, number 10. I hope we don't see another number 10 return punts, because I seen what Ronnie Bell could do, man.
Yeah, well, and when Ronnie Bell started to have trouble catching the ball, it's just deja vu hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
I don't want another 10 back there catching punts.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, but what's going on with the way we're not playing certain players? Like Danny Gray just has yet to be out there, man. It's just...
Well, I think the issue with Danny Gray is he never should have been drafted to begin with. I was against picking him because he's a body catcher. And if you don't catch with your hands and you're a deep threat, that's an issue. The ball has to be exactly right for you to get it. And I think that Kyle, being a stickler on the details and execution, doesn't like Danny Gray not catching the ball with his hands. And therefore, take a seat.
And he isn't quite a blocker from my understanding.
No. And at SMU, he had a limited route tree. So where does he contribute?
Not really much.
He's a speed guy. He has to go get the ball deep.
He's like one of those kind of guys that we need on our offense, but he doesn't seem to fill the criteria as a blocker and other stuff. So, like,
well, yeah, but keep the main thing is you got to catch the ball. You're a deep threat. You got to catch with your hands.
For
it's
sure.
Required. You can have a 4.26.40, but you can't have 4.26 hands.
Yeah, and then just drop it for no reason. I mean, but there's different areas, like now that we're going into the offseason with Brock Purdy finally having a full offseason to actually do some workouts and trainings, because last year he didn't have that luxury to do that.
Yeah. That's an important point that he hasn't had that opportunity. And when he did, between graduating from Iowa State and the draft, he worked on his mechanics to get his hip torque better, and that added velocity to his ball between when he played at Iowa State and when he's then in the NFL. So if you give him another offseason, what more can he do in his mechanics to get more of the ball? And he says that's part of what he wants to do, is to work on his mechanics to get his velocity up, and also work on what he can do in escapability and running.
That's one thing that I like about him, that he's willing to improve those other areas, because I guess when he came into the draft, everybody kept saying he didn't have a strong arm or this, but he kept working throughout the offseason about it.
Right. Well, I think that part of the reason that he went as late as he did is because people didn't know that he had more velocity now. That they were drafting the Iowa State guy rather than who Purdy was after doing the mechanics work. So the Niners were the beneficiary of that.
It was like a lottery for the Niners because a lot of coaches and GMs would have been fired if because they made that move for Trey and it just didn't work out. But they would have been fired.
Yeah, normally if Jed York isn't the CEO that's running the team, if it's somebody else, if it was Eddie D, you're gone.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's Kyle puts money in the coffers for them with home playoff games, and as long as he continues to do that, he'll continue to be the head coach.
Yep, that's what it is, and I see that Jed trusts him enough to where he lets him do what he wants.
Yeah, fully. And that's an issue because nobody in the organization can tell Kyle no. And so Kyle's the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the GM because Lynch answers to him. Yeah. So you give somebody that much control, it can be dangerous.
And that could be the problem right there. Like at some point, he might need to take down a little bit of control at some point, but
he needs to delegate more because we're seeing that situational coaching, he's had some problems.
Yeah, situational coaching, like clock management, is one of them. Like when it comes down to it, like what's so hard about running the ball at times?
Right. Or the overtime rules, or not throwing the flag on Devontae Smith's catch in Philadelphia. It's just you have to be able to react in the moment, and Kyle hasn't done that well.
And, the weird part about it is, we had to go through a lot of those struggles in the early part, but we're hoping it's eventually pays off. But it's just kind of been the same.
Yeah, but it always seems like it's something new. It's just, can we get over the hump and get all this stuff past us?
It just seems like we won't at this point right now. But, so there's got to be at least certain key players that you would figure that maybe the Niners could bring back, or you just don't see coming back.
Well, I think in free agency that they'll have a few players that they'll want back. I think that they need Cleveland Farrell because they don't have an edge setter otherwise. But the rest of them, I'm not so sure. I think that they'll re-sign Ayuk eventually, but it'll be a struggle. I think they'll keep Juwan Jennings. And then after that, it's more of just what are you looking at in free agency and the draft to plug that position in? And do you need to keep the current player, and does he provide enough value?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, you don't know what's going to happen with these players because of the contracts. But I think Jennings I think they're looking to keep him for like at least more than a year or so. So there's talks that it's a multi-year contract. If not, they'll just give him the tender.
Right. Well, the second round tender makes sense because a third round tender, somebody would say, I would be willing to give a third to get Juwan Jennings, but I don't think anybody's willing to give a second. And that's the key. Yeah, I think that's why the rumor is they'll put a second on him. Because that way they keep him. It's $5 million, but it's worth it because Jennings gives you more than $5 million in the field.
Yeah, more on the field as a blocker and actually on third down key situations. I mean, he does everything you ask for a wide receiver, and he does everything. I mean, he doesn't have – he may not be the guy that puts up the numbers, but when you give him his opportunity, he steps in and plays. Like that Packers game, he got an opportunity to contribute more. Are you there? Must be the reception. Are you there?
Sorry about that. Yeah. I've had some issues. Now we're okay. Now I can see you. Now I can hear you. Sorry about that.
It's all good. I guess the frozen thing, it happens with me sometimes.
Yeah. I've had it the last few days. Sorry about that. My apologies to everybody.
That's all good. We were talking about the receiver Jennings and all that stuff, what he does on the field for the Niners. Like he does mostly what's necessary. Like when Debo was out, he stepped in and played pretty well for Debo's place.
Well, it's just whatever's required, he steps up and does it. I mean, that catch where Purdy throws across the field and saying, no, yes.
Kind of like one of those, yeah.
And it's just give Jennings credit, and he reaches out with one hand and makes that catch incredible.
Makes it look like an Odell Beckham
without catch. And without that catch, where are they? And that's the kind of thing is that he's not just good, he's clutch.
He's clutch.
And that's exactly what you need.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep him for as long as they could. But like you just said, the Ayuk contract's going to be more complicated. But I think if you extend them, you can actually free up a little more money.
You can, yeah. Jason Hurley had an article that he posted today on 49ersCap.com that if you extend Ayuk, you should be able to save $8 million.
Yeah,
and that's something they need, because right now they're back up against it. So they're going to have to restructure some deals and extend Ayuk, but they don't want to extend him until after free agency. So it's more that what they save on Ayuk can be applied to paying for the draft class.
Yeah, that could be the factor too. And 11 picks will be another reason why we need to go that route also. But
yeah, if they keep 11, I don't think they should.
Nah, they'll probably just trade up some picks if not. And maybe only one or two guys probably won't make the team and be on the practice squad.
Right.
But speaking of the draft, man, since we're going on to this topic, I mean, there's got to be a lot of great draft players that caught your attention or somebody that you like. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah, I remember on some of the Twitters you were talking about a lot of DBs and quite a few other dudes out there.
Yeah, well, let's start where the fans are focused on the offensive tackles. Yeah. I think that one of the rumors that's out there from Tim Kawakami of The Athletic is that the Niners want to package picks to move up to get a start plug-and-play tackle. So that means starting on day one tackle. And you look at this class, you say, okay, who can do that? And you've got Amarius Mims that they can reasonably trade up for. I don't think they can get Fuaga. The Jets love him. They're rumored to take him at 10. I don't think the Niners can get that high. And so it's a question of who might be within reach. The guy that I love is Amarius Mims. He's projected to go like 17 to early 20s. And then J.C. Latham of Alabama behind him. Troy Fautano blew people away at Indianapolis, and he's rising up. He's late teens, mid-20s. And those are the three. Then it's a question of if Olu Fashanu drops or not. There are some people that say that because he didn't do that well in the testing and he had really tiny hands, 8.5, that he might drop. And Mel Kiper says mid-20s. And there are other people that say, nah, he's fine. He'll go in the 10s, in the 20s. So we'll see. But if Fashanu drops, he's another one the Niners can look at. So I think there's 4 tackles that can start day one. Those are the guys that they would look at. I don't think Guyton can start day one, nor Morgan, nor Sumataiya. I don't think those guys are starters. They need work. They need technique work, or they're imbalanced in that Morgan, for example, is great in pass pro, but not as great in the running game. Sumataiya, his trouble there is more technique-based, but he lost to power and speed in the one-on-ones at Mobile. And Guyton has a lot of size, but he doesn't have a lot of weapons. He needs more power, and he also needs some technique work. So I don't think those guys can start. So I think it's those 4: Fashanu, Latham, Mims, Fautanu. One of those 4, if they go tackle, would be the pick in the first round.
But Mims would be like he would probably be a good way to reach up for, huh?
Yeah, if you can. That would take giving up the first and the second round pick and going up to, say, Pittsburgh at 20. And the question is, would Pittsburgh be willing to do that? I don't know.
But I mean, if we do get Guyton, wouldn't it help him better with Trent Williams mentoring him a little more?
It would, but the problem is that if the Niners are looking at this like we want a guy that starts day one, and if that's the Kawakami rumor, then that's not Guyton. He's a redshirt.
Okay, so
you could say projecting long term, you could say, okay, Guyton, once he learns from Trent and gets coaching from Chris Forster, will he then in 3 years be a solid player? Maybe. But would he be as good as Amarius Mims? I don't think so. No, I think Mims is a freak. And so it's a question of what do you want to get long term? If you want to replace Trent, you need somebody that's got Trent-like qualities, that's physically imposing, that can dominate, that can impose his will. And that's Mims. That's not
Mims would be a great one, but the only knock on
him. But the price is high, and he's only played 8 games.
That's the only knock on him is he's got the prototype of what you want at your tackle, like a 340-pound dude with 6'7" or 6'8" body.
Right.
I mean, he runs pretty
and quickly. Huge hands and 36-inch plus arms and a 5.07 40. Everything you'd want. Everything. Yeah,
but it's just
only 8 games, and it's because he's been hurt. He had ankle problems, then he got tightrope surgery. After that surgery, he played really well. So it's not an issue of can he prove himself. He's done that. When he plays, he wins. It's just a question of you want to see more reps for availability than just ability. He's proven he can play.
Maybe at the next level, he'll take care of himself better because, we've seen a lot of players injured in college and it doesn't always translate all the way. It's always those ones who actually play more in college, actually.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if you're around the NFL, then you're going to get higher level people in terms of what you need to do in taking care of your body and your routine.
Yeah, but those are like good, obvious choices, like what you just said. Like the ones, if we were to move up, those would be starters. But the ones that you're saying you don't think they're ready until maybe a year or two. So
yeah, a year. Yeah, I don't think that it would take 2. I would hope not.
Oh, maybe a year.
And it's not to say that these guys can't play. It's just that they're not on the same level. That if the Niners want a starting right tackle, it's those 4.
That's those 4, obvious.
And if those 4 are gone, then I think the other one that they look at, and they had a formal interview with him at the Combine, is Graham Barton. Because they can also look at center. And there's a lot of people, Lewis Riddick being one of them from ESPN, he says he sees the tape and says all-pro. There are other people, Lance Zierlein from NFL.com, he says perfect fit for the Shanahan offense. And Zierlein should know he covered the Texans when they had Kubiak running that team. He knows the offense really well. And his dad was an OL coach for 30 years. So Zierlein says that Barton's a perfect fit. He knows what he's talking about on that.
Yeah, his versatility is going to be – I think he might even be drafted before we even get this guy, but we might have to –
Oh, yeah. No, I think they'd still have to move up.
Yeah, and what makes him so good is he can play center, guard, and tackle. This is like your all-around player. Like if something comes into injuries, this guy can plug it, and then you can just get somebody to fill his spot. That's somebody you want. Like it's kind of like having like a John Feliciano or a Daniel Brunskill kind of, but a much better pro version.
Yeah, well, higher level. Yeah.
Higher level, but really good. Like I think his versatility is what makes him so good.
Partially, yeah. And part of it is just that he's that good a player that it's the rare guy that can play all 3 positions. And so we have to see what can happen. Hey, Butterfly. So we'll see if he can get that done. But most of the scouts are saying that his best position in the league is center. And given his arm length, I think that makes sense.
Center or guard, one of the 2. I think that
center.
Would be,
yeah, they're all saying center.
So, okay, so let's say hypothetically we do get this guy. Does that mean it's the end of Jake Brendel?
Could be. Brendel was okay, but you got to remember he's 32.
And he's getting up
and he's optimized what he's got. He wasn't a high-level pick. I think he's undrafted. And so credit to him for how much he's done to get to this point. But he's maxed out. And so you're getting the best you can from Brendel and you're still having issues. If you can upgrade at center, you can do a lot. You look at what the Niners did when they had Alex Mack at center at the tail end of his career, and they were running really well inside. It's very important to have a dominant center. I think the Niners need that.
Yeah, and if Barton is that guy to play center, then I would be happy with that move because now that it can actually improve that area, and then we don't have to wait to get an offensive lineman until maybe like third round, like maybe like a Mason McCormick can play the guard spot, and I would be okay with that.
Yeah. And McCormick has the arm length where, in theory, he could slide out to tackle. He's got the feet and the arms to possibly do that, but he's best used at guard. So we'll see. But I think that Barton is also another one where they're going to have to move up, but not as much. I think that they could trade like 31 and 98, their second, third round pick, and that would take them to Tampa Bay's pick at 26. And I think you could still get Barton there. The problem is that if they wait until 31, I think that every starting offensive lineman, the 4 tackles and Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, the number 1 center, all those guys would be gone. I think they have to move up. Otherwise, you're settling for a lineman that's not going to start on day 1. You're not going to get the impact you want.
Yeah, you're probably going to get somebody you have to give another year. Give a year to develop at least. And usually some teams don't have patience for that unless it's a team that's really rebuilding. They'll be fine with that.
Right, but if you're the Niners, you're hoping to
get them right away.
You want to return to the Super Bowl next year.
You want better line protection, yes.
And so you need a guy that's going to upgrade your offensive line execution. And that's a rising tide lifting all boats. It's not just you get better play at the line. You do a better job of protecting for Purdy. You do a better job of creating a run balance, especially on the right side. I mean, the Super Bowl, they ran for, I think it was 13 carries for 70 yards on the left and 11 for 23 on the right. And they're not getting left-right run balance at all. That's part of why they need to get more talent on the right side of the line.
And that's
and for Purdy, same thing, that he is much more efficient when you give him a clean pocket, like any quarterback would. But his completion percentage goes up 8 points if he's got a clean pocket.
Yeah,
and he's also had a problem with defensive linemen batting balls down. You need to get better interior line pass protection so that you don't have Chris Jones or whoever coming in there and blocking it.
Yeah, that's been the serious issue with that one. But so if you had to go with just 2 offensive linemen or 3 guys in mind, so you said Graham Barnes would be a perfect one because he can play guard or center.
Though I think the plan would be that he would go to center.
So he would be a perfect center for that spot. But what about for guard or tackle if you had to just...
Well, for guard, if we go by what Lynch said, he wants to re-sign Feliciano. And if that's the case, then they keep Feliciano, they keep Spencer Burford, they don't do anything at guard.
But tackle, they probably would take a reach for a project, maybe like a...
Tackle, you can look at a couple of people. I like Roger Rosengarten from UW.
Very
good athlete, moves really well, and technically sound, and played on the highest level. Yeah, I think he'd be a good pickup for them. And he's now a third-round pick, but late third, so I think that they might be able to get him if they wanted to at 94 or 98. A lot of the people that they've met with in Indy are centered around the third round, so I think that that's where they're looking is we want to evaluate as many people as possible. Since we've got 2 picks in the late third, we want to know exactly what we're working with. I think it's a focal point for them.
Yeah. Rosengarten is somebody that's come to mind because of his athleticism and stuff. And then there's this Garrett Greenfield who's kind of been moving up a little bit lately also.
Yeah, he's in the 4th now, but South Dakota State, so you have to worry about
the competition
and if he's got NFL strength and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, sometimes a small competition is a little concerning, but there's this one guy that just stood out of nowhere and just came out of a Wyoming college, and this guy looked like Brock Lesnar out there. Like, big dude, just runs a 4.9.
Yeah.
That dude looked...
Yeah. You just said, who's this guy?
Yeah, who's this guy?
And South Dakota State's taken over FCS. They're the big program now.
Yeah,
and so that pays that the NFL scouts pay attention to that and said, okay, it's competitive, more competitive than it has been in FCS. And these guys are playing highest level. So he's a possibility. The Niners met with Christian Jones from Texas.
Yeah,
Devon Foster from Missouri. Looking through these more, Delmar Glaze tested well. So there's a couple of people, or really late, Tylen Grable from Central Florida. He's a converted quarterback who's a great athlete in learning the position. He's one of those ball of clay picks, 6th, 7th round UDFA that you could possibly look at. But he's down the road, 1 to 2 years for a player like that. Yeah. But there are options for them further down if they want them. Rosengarten in the 3rd, Jones in the 4th, Blake Fisher in Notre Dame, 4th or 5th, Matt Gonsalves of Pittsburgh, 5th round, Foster in the 5th.
Where would you put Crumb at?
In the 6th.
Where would Crumb be at, man? Because he's kind of like somebody intriguing, big size and all that.
Right now, UDFA, but when he ran a 4.94, I guess that he's going to move up. He'll probably be a 5th rounder now, given how fast he ran, that's going to move him. But prior to the combine, he was listed as a UDFA guy.
Probably one of those dudes, that would move up a little bit, I think we can go either direction. But speaking of like other sides of the ball, like on offense, like we can look at backup quarterbacks or somebody for Brock Purdy.
Sure, They met with Michael Pratt from Tulane, who's basically a Brock clone. Almost down to every attribute. He does the same things well and has the same issues. But he did well. He produced at Tulane. The problem is that he's probably a 3rd to 4th round, probably like early to mid 4th, maybe late 4th. And I don't know if they want to spend that much draft capital on a backup quarterback.
Hey, he kind of looks the part. Like he kind of looks like another Brock Purdy clone. Like I guess like He kind of reminds me of Lance Harbor from Varsity Blues or something. He looks like Paul Walker out there.
Yeah. Straight out of Central Casting. Yeah. So
yeah,
you've got Pratt, Jordan Travis. There's some people that like him for Florida State, but after an injury that was that severe, I worry about him. Some talk about Joe Melton, and he's got the hose. He's got the huge arm.
Yeah,
but
really strong arm.
But he doesn't throw with anticipation, and he's not accurate. And so for what you want from what Kyle demands, where he wants to see it throw at quarterback, that's not Joe Melton.
No, I think Austin Reed.
I don't think they do that. Yeah,
I think Austin Reed would be a perfect fit, or Devin Leary.
He could. He's another Purdy clone, but Western Kentucky, so you worry about the competition. You can also look at Devin Leary from UK, from Kentucky. Same thing, but all those guys fit as far as see it, throw it, processor, accurate, but not necessarily the biggest arm and not the biggest size. But all those guys are possibilities. Leary and Reed right now are probably UDFA, maybe the 7th round, depending if somebody really likes him or not.
I think Austin Reeder would be a good fit.
He'd be a great choice at UDFA if you can get him there. He's worth it. He's worth it.
But I think what makes Austin Reed so interesting is because he has a receiver that's like Debo kind of.
He's got Malachi.
I don't know where his value is going to be, but I don't know if we would get him, but it would be nice.
Yeah, let me look up Malachi here. 3rd round.
Which is not too bad.
Yeah, but I don't think that'll happen. I think they're going to deprioritize wide receiver under the assumption that they keep Ayuk and Jennings. So we'll see. But for quarterback, I think that Leary and Reed are guys that they'll definitely be looking at because it's exactly in the Purdy profile. And you can get them late too, and that's always a good thing.
And plus the way how Kyle's coached these quarterbacks, that would be a great fit for that. So
then
you look at receivers next. I don't think we're gonna go too big on receivers like you said, but maybe in the later rounds we find like something like a Ronnie Bell type of pick.
Yeah, there's possibilities. There's guys that would work. I think that they'll be looking at kick returners. That you want a guy that can run back punts. I don't think they're going to keep Ray. So there are guys that can go real late who are also very good returners, like Smoke Harris from Louisiana Tech is a player they can look at. And there's some other guys that are slot players they can look at, like Aeneas Smith from A&M or
Dave Washington.
A couple of the guys, Taj Washington. So there's a couple of people that can also return that would add value. But what I think the Niners want to do is pick the wide receiver like 5th, 6th, 7th, as opposed to 3rd, 4th. And I think fans are looking at this wide receiver class and saying, I want one of those guys. And they're great.
They're not going to get him.
I don't think they're going to do that because they've got their focus elsewhere. They're looking at the trenches. They're looking at defensive back, linebacker.
Those are
a couple others. I don't think that they're going to be looking at receiver. And because it's Kyle, they might be looking at running back also. But I think the receiver's further down the list for them. And it's tough because as a fan, you see these guys, they run these amazing 40s.
And you
see the tape and you just say, look at that guy.
Let's get him.
He's amazing. But you can't just look at the wide receiver on an island. You got to figure out what all the team needs are and where they think their resources need to be spent.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying about the receivers. I don't think we're going to go anywhere higher, maybe like 4th or 5th round at my guess, because I think you're going to fill in the trenches and then maybe get yourself a cornerback. And then I think we'll find a linebacker within the later rounds. I don't think we don't have to go any deeper.
They could. For me at linebacker, I think that the better value is free agency because there's a lot of linebackers that are taking 3 to 4 years before they really hit their stride and become an impact player. So you're better off taking a guy that's had those years. So Blake Cashman from Houston, he's the best pass defense linebacker in the league. He's a free agent. He's 27. Go get him. Or Drew Tranquil from Kansas City that played so well in the playoffs. I think it's much better to spend like $5 million on a linebacker or 4 to 5 and get a guy that's proven than to say, okay, we really like this linebacker from North Carolina, And the problem is that, yeah, sure, you can do that and say, okay, Cedric Gray played great at Mobile, but how long is it going to take for him to develop? And you already took 2 linebackers last year that are also in the development curve. Do you want to keep throwing draft picks at linebacker? I think you're much better off spending free agency.
Yeah, like somebody like Eric Kendricks, maybe you can get cheaper.
Yeah, possibly. I think that you want impact because part of the way this defense works is to have Warner and Greenlaw. So you need to approximate what Greenlaw can do. Somebody like Cashman can really help in being an even better pass defender than Fred is. He's best in the league. Or Tranquil, a guy that's very good in terms of just being an overall playmaker that scours the field.
I think
those guys would be great. But Kendricks is another one. If you're worried about how much do I spend, then Kendricks is a better value at a lower price.
Probably why I would think we go that route, because he probably wouldn't be too expensive at this point.
Yeah, but for me, I think if you want to go to the Super Bowl,
Blake Cashman
or Tranquil.
Tranquil would be
if you want to manage the money and make that the priority, then okay, Kendricks. But you can get what you pay for. I think that it's worth the extra money to get a linebacker that's high impact.
Yeah, Blake Cashman, that's surprising. Like he's just been on the Houston's roster for a while, but
right,
man, him being available would be a plus.
Yeah. Well, Houston wants to keep him, but they want to keep him cheap, and they're worried about what's going to happen. And Cashman's rubbing his hands together, saying, "Oh boy, free agency, come pay me." So it's a question of what the market's going to do.
If we get it,
I would that if you spend more than 4, then maybe Houston gets a little antsy about re-signing him.
Yeah, they're trying to get as much as they can to bring back certain players like Jonathan Greener's going to draw some interest too.
Yeah, that's the guy that's on the top of my shopping list. I've been championing him for a long time because you need a guy that's a 3-down edge. That he's top 10 in run defense. He's top 10 in pass rush win rate. He had 12.5 sacks. You don't need a guy that's dominant. You don't need the pass rusher like the Daniil Hunters or
the Brian Burns of the world.
Brian Burns or Josh Allen. What you need is somebody that can set the edge, play physical ball, play smart, that can still get in there and cause problems, that can get the opportunity sack, but he doesn't have to be the all-world guy in his own.
Yeah,
and I think that Greenard has proven that you put him next to guys that play really well, that rush the passer, he can still produce for you in terms of getting sacks, hits, pressures, but that he can also stop the run. I think that's something they need. The problem is just how much is he going to cost. You don't know.
Yeah,
and then you look at Bryce loves edges. They're going to spend a lot, and so if they spend a lot, then Spot Track right now has him at 13.4, but I think that's low. I think he'll go for like 18.
A little more higher.
Yeah.
I think Bryce Huff is probably the next option that's not that expensive, but he's moving up a little more.
Yeah. Though the problem with Bryce Huff is he's the opposite of Greenard. He's only pass rush. He's so weak against the run, you cannot play him on rundowns.
But Greenard
and the Jetson, but Greenard is. Now Greenard's top 10 in the league against the run. So that's the thing, is that are you willing to spend more to get the 3-down edge, or do you just want a guy that can rush the passer when you need it? If you want the specialist, then Huff. But they still have the need for edge setter, because right now Cleveland Farrell's the only guy they've got.
Yeah, and I think if they were to bring back Cleveland Farrell, it'll only be for maybe as a rotation guy or something.
Yeah. But he's still someone they need for those rundowns.
Yeah, which he's very valuable at too. So
right.
I think we'll probably either retain him or go a different route.
Yeah, he's the one guy. No, I would not hang on to Chase Young.
He's too much. I think he's asking too much for his value. So
yeah, and it's just you don't get a 3-down lineman, and when you're questioning the effort in the NFC Championship game,
that's one thing I question.
You want to keep that guy? No, you let him go.
Yeah, let him prove himself elsewhere if he's not going to do it here. I mean, we gave him a chance. He was showing it in DC for a short minute, and then he just didn't show it here as much.
Well, he's a flash player. He'll get a play that looks like a highlight and say, "Wow, that guy can really play." But it's what does he do on the other plays that weren't highlights, and that's the problem with Chase Young.
Yeah. So I think if you look at the pass rushers in this year's draft, not that deep. I mean, outside.
No, there's talent though. I mean, Chop, ran really well, and you look at Penn State, and then people question, well, Chop didn't have the stats at Penn State, but then neither did Micah Parsons. So this is a program that produces great athletes that can plug and play into the NFL. So I think that given that you're looking at similar coaches and another great athlete, that you can project Chop and say he's going to play well. But the rest of them, I'm not so sure. I mean, Verse and Turner, sure, but they're long gone. Latu is a high-effort technician. Marshawn Nealand is another guy like Greenard, where he's great at an edge setter and not necessarily as great as a pass rusher. Darius Robinson, I think that his one-on-ones at Mobile were overplayed, that he used the space that you have in those workouts, that you have basically the whole field to work with, and he used the field to beat his man. That in an NFL setting, in a game setting, he's not going to have that. So I'm not as sold on Darius Robinson as some people are.
I mean, I think there's like another guy like Jonas Ellis. He seems more like a technician kind of guy, maybe added him a little bit more weight, but I think he would be pretty good.
Yeah. He's 6'2", 248. He goes in the third. The Niners met with him. I'll look up to see.
Yeah, his dad coaches D-lines at Utah, but you can tell he's well coached and all that stuff. So technician is very important. That's something that Nick Bosa has.
Right, exactly. Ellis, they met with it. It wasn't formal, but they did meet with him and say, how's it going? We're interested. So that's somebody that they could look at. I mean, you look at last year's draft, and it's people that they had the 30 visits with or that they interviewed. That was nearly the entire draft.
Yeah, like Braden Willis was probably the more common one that caught my attention last year. And then I actually had his dad on a couple of times, and he was telling me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a good dude. His dad has his own little podcast, but
nice. Okay,
trying to get some work in, so maybe he might get me a connection to his son to come on soon.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I think they're kind of looking for the future to replace Juszczyk at some point. They say he would be the perfect guy to replace him at some point.
We'll see. I think that they're looking at Jaheim Bell.
Jaheim Bell's the one for Florida State. Yeah,
because he's a guy without a position unless you move him to fullback. And maybe you change his weight, but he's a guy they met with also at Indy. There's a few other people they could look at as a fullback. The one that caught my eye, let me look him up here, is it running back. Kendall Melton from Georgia.
That guy's from my area. He's from Clovis, man. This guy went to Buchanan.
Oh, nice. Well, so I was an announcer at the state meet at Buchanan track. I'm a big track guy. So
you worked at Buchanan High School?
Yeah, but just for state meet. I don't work at Buchanan as a regular employee or anything like that. But I was in the stadium calling the state meet. It was fun. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Kendall Melton from Georgia, 6'2", 225, and a solid blocker. He gets a blocking rate. Let me see.
If we get Melton, bro, I'm jumping joy, bro, because he went to a school just not too far off from where I'm at.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I stay within that area, so that's not too far from Buchanan.
Okay. Well, he had a 72.5 block rate, and so that's somebody that already is sort of has the mindset you need, and he also had a fast 10 time, but not necessarily a great 40. So he's somebody that can explode. That he had a 151.10, which is one of the fastest 10 times for a back, and so if you could convert him to a fullback, that could work.
That would probably be the replacement for you.
He's exactly. So he's somebody I'm looking at for that role. He's projected to go in the 6th round. And I think that would work better, in my opinion, than going after Jaheim Bell. And he is mid-day 3. So he's around the same. He's maybe a round earlier, 5th round. But Bell's another guy we're looking at. He's 6'2", 241. He ran a 4.61 40. But I think that he would be more of an H-back, and you've already got what you picked last year in Willis. So do you really want to duplicate that with Bell? I would much rather go with Melton because I think that he would fit.
Yeah, he would fit well. Or I've heard of this one by Larry Krueger. He put this out there that there's this kid that runs a really fast 40, but he's kind of like a speedy back, but weighs about 225.
Isaac Garendo from Louisville.
That dude is something else.
He ran a great time because he's a 10.5 sprinter in high school, so he was a fast guy. But he did what you expect to do. But here's the problem with Isaac Garendo. What's his block rating at Louisville last year? 52.7, one of the lowest block marks in the running back class.
So
Kendall Melton, on the other hand, was 72, 20 points higher.
Better.
And so what do you really want? You want a blocker.
Yeah, and which Kendall would fit really well. Like, I think, I like how you think your philosophy. Like, so if we were going to draft a running back, I would say get Kendall Milton, like you said, 6th round, maybe develop him as that fullback. Or if we do plan to move on from Juszczyk, at least we have Milton ready for that spot.
Yeah. I would have Melton waiting as a redshirt, and then you teach him fullback.
Yeah.
And then you plug him in.
There's
a lot of people that say get rid of Juice, and I agree, but
who are you going to replace?
Kyle's the GM. That's not going to happen. You know it.
Juszczyk is still productive even at his age. So
yeah. Though Jesse Naylor had the breakdown of how often Juice plays, and it's less than half of the running plays. Juszczyk is there on the field blocking. And so if he's a part-time player like that, is he worth paying $7.5 million? No.
Nah, but if you get somebody very cheaper and don't have to pay him that kind of much, I think I would rather go that route. Like, we had a kid coming out of Fresno State, and he just didn't quite work out because we had Juszczyk for too long.
Yeah.
I remember him. I had him on my show.
Yeah, Kyle is Kyle's loyal on that sort of thing. And he values that Juszczyk knows the playbook so well that you don't have to ramp anybody else up.
Yeah, you don't.
And so there it is. So I think that if Juszczyk goes, it would be more likely to be next year, not this one. And so that creates an opportunity where it's draft somebody like Kendall Melton, teach him fullback, and he can come in, as opposed to Jack Coletto last year that everybody fell in love with, but he was a decathlete. He played like 5 different positions.
Yeah.
And you need somebody that you can plug in and say, this guy has the ball of clay we need to mold into a fullback. And I would rather have that and have a guy that's got physical skills, that ran the 150-110 and that has the right build at 6'2", 225 and has some of the skills that you would need and has the blocking mentality and is proven to be effective in that role. I think that that's the guy you want.
Yeah, and I think you want to get somebody like Kendall Milton, like you just said. Like, he kind of – so the Niners have met with him, so that's a good thing.
No, I don't know if they've met with him or not. This is all just me.
Oh, okay. But he would be a great fit.
He would be a great fit. This guy.
Nah, okay, but
they haven't met with him. I hope they do. But if I was scouring it, I would say that this is the one that makes the most sense to me.
So he would be,
given his blocking ability and given his physical characteristics, given how he tested, I think that he would be the best choice for that role. Whether the Niners agree with that or even look at it or consider it, God knows.
Yeah, there's different options for us to go to. But since we're talking like tight ends after this, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about.
It's a bad tight end class. It's Bowers, and then
Sanders
is
like.
There's a lot of guys. Sanders is good, but he's not a blocker yet. He's got the frame. He's got some size, but does he really put it all together yet? No, not to the level that Kyle would want. And then Ben Sinnott from K-State, it's sort of the same thing. Theo Johnson from Penn State's a receiver, but not yet a blocker. Johnny Wilson from Florida State, he's got the size, but he doesn't have the hands. He can't catch. So there's always
like a tight end at the next level, but he just
there's always something. I mean, it's just there isn't a guy that does both, that can catch the ball and block. And that's another one where it's like linebacker, where you say that. Are you better off going into free agency to get a tight end too, as opposed to trying to draft a tight end where it could be years before they can do both things that you want them to do before you let them go on the field?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's this one kid from Iowa named Eric All. I don't know if he does everything, but he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll look it up. Well, it's the factory, it's Iowa.
They got to be well coached.
16% drop rate, 58.6 block rate.
He's all right.
Not interested.
But he has to be coached well.
He's coached well, but he's not in the class. He's
okay. So that's a good.
He's not Kittle and those guys. It's just Eric All. You can look at it, but no.
Okay, so Eric isn't all that.
Yeah, afraid
But,
so.
Yeah, and then
If they want to look at it, they met with Theo Johnson, so I think that would be, if they pick a tight end, I would think that he's probably the one that they're looking at.
he would probably be the actual.
And
fit.
he's the best in terms of an athlete that can catch, but you got to build him up as a blocker. His block rate is 60.4.
Yeah, and then there's one with the one guy from Colorado State that I like, Dylan Holker, whatever his name is.
Holker, yeah. Let me see what we got on him.
Then Isaac Rex is another good one also.
55.7 for his blocking evaluation.
Not that good.
Isaac Rex from BYU, he's a long jumper. 55.2 on the block rate for him.
Or great, I guess neither.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't think so. If they take one, I think it'd be Theo Johnson probably.
He would probably be the better fit because of his athleticism and all that stuff. Right. Maybe he'd probably be proper coached at blocking at some point.
Yeah, and he's somebody where it's easier to add the blocking than to add the receiving skills in the hands.
So what do you think of the Niners' future at their tight end? Do you think Dwelly and Warner are good as gone, or do you think they're going to bring them back again?
I think they're probably gone because you have the 2 tight ends from last year, and you're probably going to draft another one this year. And so that fills out the room. You don't have room for anybody else.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense there because I would think at some point
Yeah, it depends though. I mean, Ken Latu was barely made the team, and so how much work did he put in the offseason to develop over the course of this season to get there physically? Where's his game at? I mean, he's going to have to earn it because he went into the last exhibition game saying that this guy needs to make catches or he could get cut.
Yeah,
and so both tight ends they picked last year, they could both go.
Yeah, I think
if that's the case, then they keep the guys that are the vets that have been around for a while.
Yeah, I think Braden's the only one that's doing better as a blocker, but he just needs to get opportunities of catching the ball.
Right. Well, this is the opportunity for them now. They got to prove it right here. Otherwise, they'll get cut.
Yep, or else we just get a bunch of other tight ends undrafted that turn out to be better sometimes. I mean,
hopefully, but this is one of those where you just keep throwing picks at a problem and hoping you solve it. It's
a wasted investment. Yes.
Yeah.
And then speaking of like the players on defense, like we already I think we were discussing some of the draft guys. So like cornerback, who do you like out there?
I like Rakestraw. I think he's the best defensive back in terms of defending the run. He attacks it. He's really aggressive. I love that. And I think that that's part of what they're going to need is that one of the vulnerabilities of the wide 9 against the run is that your DBs need to fill. You need guys that can make the tackle and get the stop. Rakestraw does that really well. Cooper DeJean does that well. Kool-Aid is okay at it, but not great. TJ Tampa has great size. Kamari Lassiter can do that. Unfortunately, Max Melton, the guy that you love, he's great in every component of the game in terms of coverage. 54.5% catch rate against, and he's got skills, and he does that. However, against his missed tackle rate
probably something that he can work on
is horrendous, 26.7%.
So that's something
he's missing every 4th tackle he's whiffing. That's way too high. And on a team that needs a defensive back that can stop the run and fill, he can't. But they've met with Melton a lot. He tested very well. He covers extremely well. And you've said he's a dog, and you're absolutely right. He competes every down.
Yeah, but he kind of has something like Lador.
He doesn't wrap up. He doesn't tackle.
That's going to be something
for this team, you can't have that. I think that they're going to be looking specifically in this draft for DBs that can stop the run.
And I think Rakestraw is the one you were bringing up. That's another guy that's out there. But I think he's actually in the first round discussion.
Yeah, late first, early second. So he'd be one of those where if every offensive lineman they want is gone, then they could look at Rakestraw. But I think that even then, if all the offensive linemen are gone, if Chop is still on the board, they might take him.
Chop is actually somebody like you just said about Penn State, like the production wise, but he would translate it pretty well. But I think that would probably be the knock on Chop Robinson is the lack of production.
Right. Yeah, the stats. But then that was the knock on Micah too. So
Yeah, it worked out.
He turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, but with Max Melton, I think that's something that can be coached up. You need to coach him on how to wrap up angles and just how to pursue, because he's got the speed. He's got the arms where he can deal with it. He's got 32 and an 1/8 inch arms. He's got 4.39 40 speed. So it's just teach him how to tackle.
Yeah, tackling.
But until then,
both will teach him that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple good ones out there. But then when you look at safeties, it's not quite a need, but having a quality backup would be nice.
They do. There's one guy that everybody has been picked to go into the Niners. It's Malik Mustafa from Wake.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about him.
Good player.
He's a physical kind of guy, too.
Yeah, so 5'10", 209, mid-day 3 guy. And let's see, he had 22 in the bench, so he had good power. And his catch rate against is 51.7, so solid player.
Oh, and then there's another player that I'm already checking out. This guy was a Jim Thorpe Award winner, and this is the guy maybe we can get in the later rounds, like Trey Taylor from Air Force, man. This man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had him on my show, but this guy seems like a really good character. Like even if he was asked to play Nick or any other spots, he'll do whatever it takes to win, but he likes to hit people pretty hard.
Yeah. They haven't met with him, but he fits the profile. 6 feet 213, 31 plus arms, 60.6 for catch rate against, 3 PBUs, 3 picks. So an opportunity player with ball skills.
And a Jim Thorpe Award winner.
Thorpe Award winner. And he's late day 3, so great value that you can get somebody like that late.
He can contribute on special teams and anything like that, too.
Sure. Yeah.
He even said he can return punts if he has to be asked to.
Yeah. Though I think that the DB punt returner is Daquan Hardy from Penn State.
Ooh.
He had 2 touchdown punt returns, but they were both against UMass. So does that count?
UMass is like a competition.
But still, it shows he has the ability. So, but Smoke Harris is the punt returner that I like the most, but Daquan's another one that they can look at, and he's a slot corner for Penn State.
Yeah. There's quite a few other good ones, but there's some good values you can get at day 3, maybe that are worth the Flyers. Like, even though we don't need to go for a linebacker, but since we got KJ Wright, maybe he can maybe he can tell the front office to get one of his guys from Mississippi State, Nathaniel Watson, maybe later round. A defensive player of the year.
Yeah. Let me see on Watson.
Yeah, he's an SEC defensive player of the year, man. If you can get this guy day 3, that's not a bad.
He's 5th round. The problem with Watson is he's 24. But his stats are crazy. 35 pressures, 10 sacks, 5.4 missed tackle rate, 46 stops. Very productive.
Very productive.
That's a guy, and especially that late. Getting a guy like that in day 3, really worth it.
Oh, you know who else is an interesting hybrid linebacker that might be intriguing is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. This guy could do everything.
I don't know about Trotter. I don't know about on him. Let's see.
Seems like a Michael Parsons type guy, but just has
the knock on him is that
he's not big.
He doesn't necessarily diagnose well. That he'll go for play action, he'll bite on a lot of stuff. And the size is 6 feet.
Yeah. But his dad was a bigger linebacker than him.
Right. If he had his dad's size, he'd go up earlier.
Yeah. But Cooper's another good one I like.
Yeah, great blitzer and a guy that's a playmaker behind the line of scrimmage. He can do a lot of good things. Peyton Wilson, great athlete that tested so well, but he gets hurt so often you just have to wonder what's his availability like. Junior Colson from Michigan, who's kind of like Greenlaw, a guy that just attacks. He's a very violent player. Trevin Wallace from Kentucky, good athlete, ran 4.51. So there's some good players they can take. It's just I think you're much better off getting the plug and play guy for cheap in free agency,
or just see what you got with your young guys with you drafted.
Yeah.
I like
and just
Grant,
see where you're at. Yeah, and Jalen Grant's a good player, and so let's see what he's got. But the problem is that if he's on the trajectory that most of these guys are, it's 3 years before he can really play a substantial role.
Yeah.
And that's why I say free agency. Get the guy you need now. because you need him now.
Yeah, I don't know about D. Winters. He's shown some promising, but still needs some work.
He is, but D. Winters, it seems to me that his role at TCU was set him up to blitz, as opposed to a linebacker making plays. It's a different thing. He was kind of a designated pass rusher from linebacker.
Yeah, which is kind of like something like a Parson is, but just not used the right way.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we have our own version of Jeremiah Trotter, or that it's D. Winters. No.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Why you didn't get a Jeremiah Trotter?
So why Trotter?
But I guess Jalen Graham would probably be like the project of what we have with those other guys.
Yeah. It's just the issue with Jalen Graham is where's he at in his development? Can he take the field and play a large role? Can he start in place of Greenlaw? I'm not sold on that, because you look at the history and there's a lot of people, even Patrick Queen, that struggled for 3 years before he blossomed. There's a lot of guys where it takes some time. And it might be the same thing with Graham. So I'm all in on get a free agent linebacker for $4 to $5 million, and you got a guy that can contribute day one, and that's what you're going to need if you want to get the 1 seed again and be a team that can compete for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and like you just said, Blake Cashman would probably be the nice one to go for.
Yeah, or Drew Tranquil. Either one of those guys I would love to have.
Tranquil, that's even a good choice right there. I mean,
yeah.
Hey, I'm already checking out his name, man, and you're already telling me. Yeah, I've heard of his name, but I think he was with the Jets, right?
Cashman was with the Jets, and then he went to Houston.
So he's going to have
I'm sorry, Cashman was Jets, then Houston. Tranquil played for Kansas City last year, and he played big in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, Tranquil's another guy I'm hearing about. He's under the radar. But Willie Gay's another guy I'm hearing.
Yeah, though he had injury problems for Kansas City.
But very athletic.
Availability, yeah. He was what Spagnuolo wanted to use him as the spy on quarterbacks, so that tells you what level of athleticism Willie Gay's got.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely get some more cover-ups in the coming weeks. Maybe down the road we can definitely catch up again, or unless you guys.
Yeah. Let's hook up again before the draft and just see where things are at, and hopefully by then we'll have some free agency answers, and then we'll know really where they're going to be looking in the draft.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll definitely plan on something. Maybe like weeks during free agency. If you got time, we can do something like that.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get our schedules to work out. But appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
Oh yeah, anytime. And tell everybody where they can find your social media platform and all that stuff.
Ninercast on Twitter. I've got my YouTube channel I'm building. There's hopefully going to be content on there next week.
Oh yeah.
So I'll announce that on Twitter, and I'll give links for people to check it out there. I'll have mock drafts and position breakdowns for each position leading into the draft.
Yeah, hopefully in the coming future, then maybe we can work on some shows every now and then if you want.
Yeah. Touch base every couple of weeks. That'd be good.
Yeah, you got good knowledge. I respect it, dude, and I can admire that, dude. Like most other people just have a little clueless of what they're talking about sometimes. But it seems to me you already.
I do watch tape. I'm not a professional evaluator, but I do watch the games and try to get a feel on what's going on.
Watch the tape or something before you get into some conclusion about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch the games. Don't just watch highlights, because there's a lot of stuff that's hidden.
It's hidden,
and
like
sometimes it's important to know what they don't do well. And so that's why I think it's always important to watch the game, full game.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for your time, and for everybody else.
Thanks, CJ.
And no problem, dude. Anytime.